This is former All-Pro Dolphins lineman Richmond Webb, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Welcome to The Grueling Truth Show, The Real Deal. I'm your host, Josh Benjamin, of course. This show has various sports topics, and this show is available on our website, www.thegruelingtruth.net, also on Spreaker, Stitcher, now Google Music, and iTunes with the search phrase Grueling Truth to listen to any show anytime you'd like. Today, we have the third part of our four-part series of coaching. Our guest today is RJ Hartsfield. He's the head football coach at Salem High School. Welcome, RJ, to The Real Deal.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Thanks for coming on and taking your time to do so. The last couple of weeks we've had coaching, the coaching aspect on our show, and this is the third part. And this week it involves more about the involvement of your assistants and other coaches. Before we get into that, though, why did you decide to become a coach or even a head coach?
Well, I think that as you kind of get older and you start to grow out of the playing days, you know that your days are coming to an end, and I just felt like that. I wanted to stay connected to the game. I liked being around kids, and I felt like I could bring something to the table in that aspect, and I felt like coaching might be an avenue that I would at least try, and so as I started thinking about my major and what I wanted to do in college, obviously the two that go together is coaching and teaching, and so I really thought about it, and and finally I decided that I'd like to go be an elementary teacher, and that's what I went for, and ultimately that came right along with coaching, and I felt like it was a good thing for me just to keep me involved and kind of structure in my life that I needed. I guess is kind of the biggest part of it.
Well, good for you, RJ, and kind of like the other coaches in the last couple of weeks have talked about, either giving back to the youth of today, or whether they love the game so much they wanted to be that other part of it, on the other side of the fence per se. And so all these coaches have kind of the some similar aspects of why they decided to coach. Speaking of coaches, and I mentioned you are a head football coach of a high school. Your staff, what does your staff do in the off season for your program?
Well, we've got a really great staff at Salem. I'm fortunate enough to have two Franklin College graduates. One of them was a freshman when I was a senior, and the other one he came in a year after I left there at Franklin. And so two guys that kind of already had similar background. One of them is from Salem, the other one's from Brownstown, so they knew the area. And then two of the other guys on my staff are two of my best friends growing up, and then the other one is my other assistant coach is a guy that I actually played for, Coach Brian Montsinger, and he's obviously in a different role now, but those guys in the off season we work real hard. I mean, to get our youth guys and our middle school guys up to par, as far as the X and O piece, but more importantly, just to get those guys to understand what type of kids we want when they get to high school. I feel like a relationship is something that we take great pride in. I feel like we really have strived to build a bond with our little league kids and our middle school kids, and it takes a lot of work to do that. Some of the things that we have our assistant coaches do is we go in January or December and January, we hold youth coaching clinics. So we actually coach up the coaches that are going to be coaching our kids, and that creates an open door with our youth guys, to where they'll feel important to, and welcome enough to come in and ask questions and not feel that they don't know something, and that would be a bad thing. So that's one of the things we do. We do a lot of speed and agility stuff with our middle school kids and our youth kids also during those winter months. We hold a Sunday skills clinic in the evening time on Sunday, and We normally have about 70 kids, and we get some girls and some boys, and some kids that may never play football. But it's more importantly, I feel like you give kids an opportunity to come in and test the waters, and by doing that, sometimes we gain one or two kids, the next season. So, as far as other development things, obviously, like our defensive coordinator, he's a young guy, but he's a guy that he's responsible for everything our defense, entails. He has to put a scouting report together every week. He has to put in the off season, he has to put our installation plan for our summertime. It's basically he's the head coach of our defense, and I feel like when you let coaches coach and not tell them exactly what to do every day, I feel like you get better coaching, and I feel like guys feel like they're more important to your program.
That's good stuff, and I completely agree with that last comment you said about letting them coach and giving them that autonomy and that freedom to be able to produce whatever they like, obviously within your philosophy, of course. But
absolutely, I mean that's exactly right. They're not gonna, I don't have any guys that I haven't sat down with and talked extensively about different things that we would like to do. But again, ultimately, one of the biggest mottos that we have is with responsibility comes accountability. You can't. I can't turn it over to this defensive coordinator and say, go run with it, and then, we stink it up for 3 or 4 years in a row and not feel like we're getting any better. And when I say stink it up, I don't mean, wins and losses necessarily isn't really what I'm talking about in that. I mean, are we developing kids to the aspect to make them better people, to make them better, productive people in our community? Are we doing those things? And I feel like our staff, by letting them go out and coach, I feel like they've really bought into that, and we coach hard, and I'm appreciative of what they bring to the table every day.
That's a great philosophy to adopt. Those young aspiring coaches that are listening, take some notes. RJ just gave some great insight on that, and as far as being able to give those coaches the ability to own up to what they're doing and make them feel part of a family, a program, and so that's great stuff, RJ. Speaking of assistants and making them better, how do you personally make your assistants better?
Well, I think any time that you can put a person in a position, one, that they feel comfortable in, two, that they feel challenged in, I feel like you give yourself a good chance to create professional growth, personal growth. I'm one of those coaches that, I'm younger. I'm not an older guy. But what I like is I like when our coaches come in and we sit down and we challenge each other. I don't want yes men on our staff. And if you get yes men on your staff, unless you're just the best and you've got the best talent, then you're probably not going to be very good. I truly feel that by letting guys coach and by letting people develop, no question about it. Our first year, we were all new at every position that we were in. I was a new head coach, and our defense coordinator was a new coordinator. Our O-line guy was new into the system, and so it was just new to everybody. And I felt like the biggest piece that we came together with was because when you don't have a lot of guys that are all on the same page, it's a cluster. When you have guys that you sat down with and you spoke to and you I'm not necessarily saying developed, but you allowed those guys to develop within your scheme and learn different nuances of what you want coached. I feel like you really give people an opportunity for the maximum growth and potential that they can bring to you. And again, by being young and by having young people around you, that's something that's tough. It's tough to turn something over to a young 25-year-old kid and say, hey, go run my defense. But it's one of those things that if I tried to do it all, nothing's getting coached the way we want to coach because I'm strung through sin. And so that's kind of the philosophy we've taken about developing coaches. I'm not necessarily going to say I've taught them anything. I try to go to work and coach my tail off every day like they do. And, I feel like if you got we have 6 coaches on our staff, and I feel like if all 6 of us go to practice every day with the mindset that we're the head coach of our position, then we're going to be in a position to be successful.
That the line you just said about being the head coach of your position, that's a great phrase. I never heard anyone say that. That's good stuff when it comes to going back to the assistants, because RJ's a head coach position, owning up to it, making it meaningful to them, and like I said, owning to what they're doing for the program, because it's all on them. And that's, some people maybe say that's pressure, but some people may say that's an opportunity. And so
it has to be.
Absolutely.
You don't put your quarterback out there on the field and say, go play, without telling him what you want done. But you also don't sit out there and tell him who to throw to and who, exactly how you want it done. You give them the general idea of where you want to be, where you want to go as a staff, as a team, and then you have to say, from here on out, man, I need you to be what I hired you to be. And I think that oftentimes kids or young coaches get caught up in a title. I've been in that situation where I felt like I wanted to be an offensive coordinator, or I want to be a head coach, and by wanting that, that's a great carrot to have hanging in front of you, yes, but you can't get hung up in the fact of being just having a title. And I think when you get people that are title chasers, I think it's a huge problem to have. But again, I think as a head coach, if you surround yourself with people, number one thing that I feel is the most important thing to have as an assistant coach is loyalty. To me, there's nothing that can bring you down if everybody's on the same page and everybody trusts each other. It's when you get the backstabbing or the undermining. Those are the ways that things come down. And I'm speaking this from guys that I've learned but I also learned from, but I also have experienced it, in the fact that the guys that I have around me, I could say, hey, I want you to do this, and I know that it's going to get done because I trust it, and they know that I expect it to get done. So, again, the phrase that I tell them when we meet every year, before season, after season, is, with responsibility that I give you, I'm going to hold you accountable. So with responsibility comes accountability, and it's hard to look your best friend in the face and say, hey, you're not getting it done, man. But sometimes that's, when you're in a leadership role, you have to make hard choices. And, fortunately for me, the guys that we have are great coaches, and they're passionate about Salem football, and so I feel like it's a good fit here. And we're getting a lot better, and we're going to be better for years to come because of what all these guys have committed to.
Well, the loyalty piece you were talking about earlier, the best, whatever offense, defense, special teams, whatever strategy you have, or whatever philosophy, if everyone believes it, whatever that situation is, if everyone is completely in that same belief and strive for that goal, that can happen. Whatever X and O's you have, whatever strength program you are adopting, whatever agilities you use daily in the off season and during season, however you scout, whatever it is, and that's a great piece, especially for assistant coaches and those young guys out there that are listening, and young women that are wanting to be maybe in that head coaching role and that top of the totem pole, I guess you should say. But loyalty, and because one day, correct me if I'm wrong, RJ, you're going to want that same type of mentality from your assistant coaches when it comes
Absolutely.
to being right behind you, being standing up for your program and owning up to it. Just going back to like you said before. So all great points there. I just want to add, being a leader and a role model, and that's pretty subjective because that should happen with all coaches, including your assistants. But as a head coach, you want to provide information to your assistants to be able to have them be creative with whatever that is, especially in the off season when it comes to adopting new drills possibly, or adapting drills that you have. Being able to talk to next level coaches, and in this case it would be college coaches, and just picking their brain about different things when it comes to their position, whether they're a coordinator or even yourself, RJ, with being a head coach. I think that's pretty important as well.